Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Briefing.
According to an Israeli Channel 2 news report Tuesday night, Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit is seeking to announce his decision on whether or not to indict Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu before the upcoming elections. Mandelblit is said to have been consulting with top judicial officials, including former attorney generals and Supreme Court justices, on whether he can legally announce a pre-indictment hearing for Netanyahu ahead of the vote. And according to the report, the legal experts advise that a decision could be published prior to April 9th. That being said, should Mandelblit decide to press charges against the Prime Minister, he would have to first announce an indictment pending a hearing with Netanyahu, only after which charges could be officially filed in court. In response to the report, though, the Prime Minister's lawyers issued a statement saying that such a decision would gravely harm the democratic process because the hearing in which Netanyahu could state his version of events would not take place before the elections, thereby skewing the public's views on it. The attorneys continued that, quote, "It's inconceivable that the public will hear only one side and not the other," end quote, adding that there have been many instances in which attorney generals have decided to drop charges after announcing an indictment as a result of the hearing. Last week, however, Mandelblit insisted that it was his duty to the public to announce a decision before going to the polls. Regardless, as indicated often, and as recently as yesterday in Brazil, Prime Minister Netanyahu said he would not resign in the face of indictments anyhow, as he continues to maintain the belief that nothing will come of it anyway. Hatnuah Party leader Tzipi Livni is not taking her public dismissal laying down, a day after Labour Party leader GABBAY held a press conference in which he publicly announced an end to his partnership with Livni to her complete surprise, thereby dismantling the Zionist Union. In an interview on Wednesday morning with Israel's Army Radio, she slammed GABBAY, saying, quote, "My candidate for Prime Minister was GABBAY, but anyone who saw what happened yesterday understands that he is not a real candidate. He has no worldview," end quote. She also criticized the manner in which he decided to end their partnership and said that they both felt uncomfortable in the partnership, but that, quote, "I felt obligated and he ended it in a very ugly way," end quote. As for Livni's political future, however, she indicated that she would still be open to political partnerships with any of the new emerging parties, mainly Benny Gantz's and Moshe Ya'alon's parties, adding that she would even be willing to give up the number one slot if it meant overthrowing Netanyahu. She said, quote, "I have an ideology, something you can't say about GABBAY," end quote. Meanwhile, GABBAY was forced to defend his position following the criticism of the humiliating manner in which he publicly ended his partnership with Livni. He doubled down, though, saying that it was the right decision according to the polls. But in fact, recent polls have showed Labour now in the single digits, the lowest point the party has ever reached. Nevertheless, GABBAY continued with business as usual and on Tuesday night announced the appointment of Knesset member Shali Yachimovich in lieu of Livni as the new head of the opposition party. Newly elected Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro was inaugurated by the National Congress in Brasilia yesterday, promising to uphold the Constitution and fight for all Brazilians as he begins his 4-year term. That being said, he's clearly fighting for himself too, as the 63-year-old Bolsonaro drove in with a massive motorcade, dozens of armed guards, thousands of police patrolling the area, and military personnel deployed, all at his personal request. Though the reasoning is obvious considering he was stabbed at a campaign rally in September. Still, with Prime Minister Netanyahu and many other world leaders in the crowd, Bolsonaro projected strength as he spoke to the nation. He discussed the, quote, "great challenge of facing the effects of the economic crisis and record unemployment," end quote, as well as the so-called liberation from socialism and the leadership of the Workers' Party. He also spoke of plans to ease gun control laws to enable, quote, "good citizens to counter rising crime and reducing public debt." But most of all, he vowed to maintain, defend, and carry out the Constitution, observe the laws, and promote the general welfare of the Brazilian people. Despite the thousands of supporters, however, not everyone has jumped on the Bolsonaro bandwagon. Critics still compare him to United States President Donald Trump and decry his positions as homophobic, racist, sexist, and autocratic. He also received worldwide condemnation for his suggested plans to reduce regulations protecting the Amazon rainforests. According to reports on Monday, construction of the nautical barrier between Gaza and Israel is nearing completion. Now, in addition to preventing incursion by land and by tunnel, with both the above and below ground barriers around the strip, the Israeli Defense Forces will also be able to prevent illegal flotillas or commandos coming by sea. Together with a constant naval presence at sea, the new water barrier extends from the coast some 200 meters, both above and below the waves. Above the waves is a smart fence with advanced sensor technology, rising about 20 feet. And then on the Israeli side of that fence, there's also a breakwater and a road. Then underneath the water lies a massive concrete wall lined with more seismic and other sensors, and surrounding that is another mounted wall of boulders. Now, as the above and underground barriers are in response to previous incursion attempts, so too does the naval barrier come in response to attempted infiltrations by sea and by coastline. The first major incident was in 2014 during the Operation Protective Edge, when 5 Hamas commandos crossed the border along the beach towards Kibbutz Zikim armed with automatic weapons, grenades, and more. Thankfully, they were seen, engaged by the IDF, and stopped, but in the years since then, Hamas has invested heavily in expanding its naval commando unit.
That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.